The real story of school starts a long time ago. In fact, it starts at a time when you would not have recognized the Earth as the Earth. Unlike now, billions of years ago, the Earth was just a regular Joe planet like all the others. It was pretty wet, but there was hardly any oxygen. The atmosphere had a lot more sulfur, which is normal for planets. So the early Earth was doing what most planets do, cooling down from a very hot beginning by dissipating a bunch of that energy into space. Then something happened. In the soup of chemicals that made our planet wet, there emerged some molecules that didn't just randomly dissipate energy like all the others. They got organized and dissipated that energy more efficiently than ever before, and it was cool. These molecules were so cool because they figured out how to respond to changes in their environment as the dissipation process occurred, so they could keep their transformation processes going. Variations on that organization eventually led them to arrange themselves into a system that could both respond to the environment and could replicate themselves, so all the cool molecules could keep partying together. So these molecules did something that might have been a first in the whole universe. They made the party permanent by creating the first living cells on Earth. The first living cells were a molecular party celebrating the dissipation of energy. That momentous transition was the beginning of learning, and it kicked off the first population explosion. Now, the thing about great parties is that you eventually have to pay the piper. In this case, those first cells were having a great time deep in the oceans. But direct sunlight was too much energy all at once, so it could kill them. And you know how it is. The popular spots get crowded. So naturally, life replicated itself right into all the easy places to live. So some cells eventually ended up being forced to live near the surface where the sunlight could kill them. This is where the creative organization of life came in handy. Some of those cells, living in danger near the surface, decided to turn this problem into an opportunity. They invented photosynthesis by focusing their ability to channel energy on some of the water molecules around them. They channeled that potentially deadly solar radiation into breaking apart an H2O molecule. They used the 2 hydrogen to dissipate energy even more efficiently, thus saving their lives, and exhaled the toxic oxygen. Since they were living in the ocean, it just bubbled right out their home into the atmosphere. So photosynthesis kicked off an even greater explosion of population and changed the entire planet in the process. So, once again, life got back into party mode. Remember that oxygen is a pretty uncommon thing to find on a regular Joe planet. So when life went on this multi-billion-year binge, replicating itself throughout the early oceans, then that oxygen eventually started to accumulate in the atmosphere. Photosynthetic life naturally filled up all the easy places to live, and once again, the piper called for compensation. There came a time when they had to face the fact that their own waste product was becoming unavoidable. They, in fact, created a global environmental crisis. You know what happened? Creativity saved them again. Some of the organisms, faced with imminent death by oxygen poisoning, found a way to transform the toxin into a nutrient. They figured out how to breathe the oxygen, and once that happened, the party kicked into overdrive. Okay, oxygen breathers were such successful energy transformation processes that they diversified to encompass every area of the planet, both in the oceans and on land. New forms of cooperative organization emerged, like organisms becoming multicellular. Species were constantly specialized to fit ecological niches. If their niche changed too fast and they failed to adapt, extinction. The diversity of life exploded and contracted a few times, including the rise and fall of the dinosaurs. Eventually, primates emerged, then humans, who are the ultimate ecological generalists. The original humans lived according to their local version of the story of how the gods created them as just one of many life forms within the sacred hoop, whose fates are entirely in the hands of the gods. Every group of humans created a unique story about how to live properly in their niche, which they passed on to their children. But they all believed that as long as they acted as keepers of the sacred hoop, then all would be well. The keepers were so successful that they overcrowded the easiest places to live, And eventually some people were forced to live in danger, where harsh conditions made living extremely difficult. Then one day, a tribe figured out that the gods were about to wipe them out, and they decided to take their fate into their own hands. These were our ancestors who developed a new story of how we could be powerful like the gods. We broke the sacred hoop, swooped down out of those dangerous lands to conquer our neighbors, and began subjugating people and lands in the hope that we could take control of fate. We, the breakers of the sacred hoop, have been subjugating and controlling so long that we can change the environment itself in response to changes in our human story. We developed writing and began to endlessly repeat exactly the same sacred story as if it were the absolute truth, independent of where it originated. We invented schools to ensure the symbol manipulation skills for creating sacred books would be passed on. The development of the book eventually led us to the development of the factory, which became the final piece that gave us dominion over every ecology on the planet. We combined them to become the people of the book factory, and we spread both the breaker story and the book factory schools across the globe. Breaker schools embody the story of how important it is to be in control by managing everything that a child does. Adults in book factory schools noticed that children are sometimes reluctant to submit to the boring tasks associated with being made to learn symbol manipulation. Since those symbol manipulation skills are an unqualified good for breakers, it is both logically necessary and morally correct for the adults to control the children so they will learn the skills for success. But breaker schools are exclusively devoted to the symbol manipulation skills of our breaker ancestors and utterly neglect the deeper lessons from our keeper ancestors and from life itself. Breaker schools act as if they believe in the content delivery theory of education. Regardless of what they say about what they are doing, they are systematically treating children as if they lack value until after teachers deliver valuable academic content into their heads. And they account for the delivery of the content by having the children regurgitate the content on command. The children learn from those behaviors that their value as human beings is contingent upon their scores and/or grades. In breaker schools, children are not regarded as valuable until after they have proven that they did what they were told to do. So now we breakers have been so successful at our own planetary transformation processes that we put ourselves in danger by fouling our nest with our own waste, and we're at risk of extinction like the dinosaurs. We are now, like it or not, agents who are capable of changing the way our world works, but we need to recognize that the keepers of the sacred hoop had it partly right. We can be wiped out if we do not recognize our proper place in the world. We need to mend the sacred hoop and act as co-creators with all the rest of life, the universe, and God, because complete control of fate is impossible. We need to embrace and nurture sacred stories that help us to live sustainably. It is time for us to become menders of the sacred hoop. We need to honor the power of the sacred mystery that can both bless us with health and wealth and use volcanoes, tsunamis, disease, our fellow humans, meteorites, and many other mechanisms to kill us at any time. Schools need to realize that the most elementary lesson we need to learn from our ancestors is a proper attitude towards the world and our proper place in it as powerful agents of transformation. Academic skills are secondary. Mender schools act as if they believe in the growing mental maths theory of education. Regardless of what they say about what they are doing, they treat children as if they are inherently valuable transformation processes who happen to need to figure out how they will contribute to the world. They structure their community to support the children in a process of discovering how their unique talents and gifts can create value. They encourage the children to engage with the world and figure out how they can make valued contributions to it. They know that children will succeed in life as long as they are healthy and hearty. Therefore, they will hold each other accountable by assessing the well-being of the children. They know the children are being well educated because they can observe the growing skillfulness and creativity with which the children navigate self-selected challenges and pursue goals and aspirations that are relevant to both themselves and their community. And when a child's actions may have destroyed value instead of creating it, They carefully help the child realize the consequences of their actions and help them redirect their efforts to more valuable ends. We need to teach our children how to be both the masters of their own attention and wise decision makers who have compassion for all of the life around them that will be impacted by the decisions they make. Then perhaps we can party on in harmony with the rest of life as we figure out how to live happily ever after. We don't have to invent Mender schools from scratch. There are schools around the world that put attitude before academics and are on the path to mending the sacred hoop, even if they don't call it that. They are currently few and far between, so it will take some effort to scale them up and help other schools to transform to meet the challenge. The good thing about having such a vast problem is that there are lots of places for intervention. There are people working in schools on respecting diversity, more equitable uses of resources, more participation in decision-making, better access to food, flexible scheduling to better support the sleep patterns of teens. All of this work is really important. But things are really going to start moving when people see the connections, when we see the big picture of how well-being is the foundation upon which good pedagogies build. When people throughout the system get united, we can reclaim and transform our education system into something new. What we really need is to chuck that old school mindset that learning is just content delivery. There's a new school of thinking on this stuff, and it's based on growing mental maps, supporting equity, student voice, more reliable funding, restorative justice, rights-respecting schools, and many more. It's already happening. Some say it's unrealistic, idealistic, that it can't happen. But I say those who are unrealistic are those who want to continue with the old path. That's dreaming. Remember, the old way didn't just happen. It's not like gravity. We just have to live with it. People created it, and we're people too. So let's create something new. For more information, visit schoolsofconscience.org. Thanks for watching.